with Don Staniford, January 26th, I believe. So you're testifying tomorrow. Can you tell us your thoughts now going into it?
Yeah, we're on day 9 of a scheduled 20-day trial, so we're kind of almost halfway through. I'm about to take the stand tomorrow, Friday, and our expert witness, Dr. John Volpe, is on the stand on Monday and Tuesday, so I'll be back on the stand Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, and maybe even into the week of the 6th of February. Things are going really well. We had a bizarre 2 hours this morning, arguments about a blog I wrote yesterday called Blowing Smoke on Salmon, and a reference to Mary Ellen Walling and Leanne Brunt. These are the PR spokesmen for the salmon farming industry. I referenced the Queen classic hit Fat Bottom Girls from 1978, and that led to 2 hours of discussions about intimidation and victimization of witnesses. And the plaintiff, which is the Norwegian government company Cermaq, effectively asked for the judge to give me a caution. They said they didn't want a contempt of court, but if I continue to do it, that's what they'd be seeking. But the judge, after some deliberation, said she couldn't make a ruling on contempt, but it was certainly a shot across the bow from the plaintiff, I think, to actually intimidate me for speaking out on social media, on Twitter and Facebook.
What was the intent of this Fat Bottom Girls reference? Is that regards to the seafloor, or what?
It was multiple puns, but there's the fat cats, the corporate fat cats. Cermaq is a multinational big company. I also made a statement that Mary Ellen Walling herself has eaten more than her fair share of farmed salmon. That's a reference to the consumption advisories. So this case will hinge to a large extent on whether the cancer-causing contaminants in farmed salmon can be linked in any shape or form to smoking and the warning labels on tobacco. And if you read the lyrics of the Queen song and listen to it, it's very complimentary. So they were saying that by referencing that it was bad, but I would argue that it's actually quite flattering. And the picture I used, if you look at the album cover, the Fat Bottom Girl on the cycle is actually really quite beautiful. So I would have thought it was a compliment.
So let's get to deportation. So on the first day, some police officers that are border security came to visit you. Can you talk about that conversation?
Yeah, this is a surreal world of justice in Canada, or the lack of justice in Canada. You know, this is Harper's Canada, which seems to be turning into a police state, a fascist state. This is why he's building so many prisons. I think the Conservative government are trying to brand environmentalists as radicals. And my case is interesting. On the first day of court, the police turned up with a immigration officer from the Canadian Border Services Authority, and they're going to deport me. I had a meeting this morning, Thursday, with an officer, and it looks like I'm going to be deported on the 29th of February, so that's 3 weeks or so after the trial. I have to give my passport up, and when I go to check in at the airline, I'll be met by a Canadian Border Services official who will escort me with his gun and handcuffs all the way through security to the plane to ensure that I leave Canada. I think this is the Canadian government trying to clamp down on free speech, and I think this shows the links between the Canadian government and the Norwegian government. The Norwegian government, I think, must have tipped the Canadian services off or intimidated them to put the pressure on me, and the result is I have to leave Canada. I am not allowed to return to Canada within a year.
Even if you're sponsored as an employee or anything like that, would there be restrictions on people hiring you or anything like that?
I'm not sure. That the company themselves, Cermaq, which is effectively the Norwegian government, they're seeking $125,000 of damages, and they're also seeking a permanent injunction against me speaking out anywhere in the world against any company on salmon farming issues. So that's essentially a restraint of trade. I won't be allowed in Canada. I won't be allowed to campaign in British Columbia for at least a year, and then if I do come back, I have to apply in advance, and then my entry is subject to authorization and approval by the Canadian Border Services. So I think I've been branded as an eco-terrorist and a person non grata, and I think it's a shocking system that we have in Canada that clamps down on free speech, does not allow fair and legitimate criticism of an issue which I think is in the public interest and has captured people's imagination. There's a huge opposition building to salmon farming here in British Columbia, and I think people are standing up for wild Pacific salmon. They don't want Norwegian-owned, disease-ridden farm salmon affecting wild salmon stocks.